Recorded Books presents an unabridged recording of The Beekeeper's Apprentice, or On the Segregation of the Queen, by Laurie R. King, narrated by Jenny Sterlin. This work is copyrighted 1994 by Laurie R. King. This recording is copyrighted 1995 by Recorded Books. The author writes,
"The first thing I want the reader to know is that I had nothing to do with this book you have in your hand. Yes, I write mystery novels, but even a novelist's fevered imagination has its limits, and mine would reach those limits long before it came up with the far-fetched idea of Sherlock Holmes taking on a smart-mouthed, half-American, 15-year-old feminist sidekick. I mean, really. If even Conan Doyle hungered to shove Holmes off a tall cliff, surely a young female of obvious intelligence would have brained the detective on first sight. However, that doesn't explain how this story came into print. It began several years ago, when the UPS delivery woman came barreling down the driveway and, somewhat to my surprise, began to unload not the order of vegetable seeds I was expecting, but a very large, heavily strapped cardboard box that must have stretched UPS's weight restrictions to the limit, because she had to use her dolly to maneuver the thing onto my front porch. After questioning her to no avail, and checking carefully that the address on the box was indeed mine, I signed for it and went to get a kitchen knife to cut the tape. I ended up cutting considerably more than the tape, and when I had finished hacking away the cardboard, I was ankle-deep in scraps. That knife has never been the same. Inside was a trunk, a large and much-abused, old-fashioned metal traveling trunk, complete with stickers from hotels familiar and unlikely. Could there be a Ritz in Ibadan? Someone had thoughtfully fastened the key into the padlock with a length of Scotch tape. So I removed the tape and turned the key, feeling somewhat like Alice confronted with a drink-me bottle. As I stood looking down at the jumbled contents, my curiosity began to take on alarming overtones. I rapidly pulled back my hand and stood away from the trunk, thoughts of madmen and stalkers standing out in my mind like newspaper headlines. I went down the stairs and around the house, fully intending to call the police. But when I went to the back door, I stopped to make myself a cup of coffee first, and when it was in the cup, I walked through the house to look cautiously out the window at the dented metal and the gorgeous purple velvet that lay inside it, and I saw that one of the cats had curled up on top of the velvet. Now, why a sleeping cat should cause fears of explosive devices to fade so quickly I cannot think, but it did, and I was soon on my knees, elbowing the cat out of the way to examine the contents. They were very strange. Not taken by themselves, but as a collection. There was neither rhyme nor reason. Some articles of clothing, including the beaded velvet evening cloak with a slit near the hem, a drab and disreputable man's bathrobe or dressing gown, and a breathtaking gossamer wool and silk embroidered cashmere shawl, a cracked magnifying lens, 2 bits of tinted glass that could only be a pair of peculiarly thick and horribly uncomfortable contact lenses, a length of fabric that a friend later identified as an unwrapped turban, a magnificent emerald necklace, a weight of gold and sparkle that rode my throat like wealth personified until I unhooked it and carried it inside to thrust beneath my pillow, a man's emerald stick-pin, an empty matchbox, 1 carved ivory chopstick, one of those English railway timetable books called ABC for the year 1923, 3 odd stones, a thick 2-inch bolt rusted onto its nut, a small wooden box, ornate with carving and inlay depicting palm trees and jungle animals, a slim gold-leaf red-letter King James New Testament, bound in white leather that had gone limp with use, a monocle on a black silk ribbon, a box of newspaper clippings, some of which seemed to deal with crimes committed, and an assortment of other odds and ends that had been pushed in around the edges of the trunk. And right at the bottom, a layer of what proved to be manuscripts, although only one was
Sample complete. Ready to continue?